You are now listening to the Purple Fox Podcast.
Update.
What's going on, everybody? It's your host, Kevin Eze, with another Purple Fox update. Today, I'm going to be tackling an issue that I'm pretty sure everyone is dealing with right now. And I'm going to call this one, What's Going On with Our Economy? It's a big question right now. A lot of people want answers. Most people are somewhat in the know. I like to keep myself updated. I listen to Marketplace with Kai Risdall a lot of the time. Check up on what Jay Powell is deciding every once in a while to see what's going down, to see if there's any turns in the market this way or that way. But I wanted to start with this CNBC article by Jeff Cox entitled "The Federal Reserve is Scaring Markets with Triple Threat Policy of Tightening." So there's a triple threat that many people in the market are scared of right now. And this is a quote from that article. So Jeff Cox goes on, investors have been preparing for the Federal Reserve to start hiking interest rates. They also know the central bank is cutting the amount of bonds it buys each month. On top of that, they figured eventually the tapering would lead to a reduction in the nearly $9 trillion in assets the Fed is currently holding. So the Federal Reserve is currently holding $9 trillion of assets, and this started at the beginning of the pandemic to kind of keep the market afloat. So what do we know? The article goes on to say that the moves are geared towards fighting rising inflation. Inflation is running rampant in our economy right now. There's not much that can be done besides Fed action. It's not the president's fault. Stop saying it's the president's fault. Joe Biden has nothing to do with this. That's why he keeps ceding to Jay Powell, because it's the Fed's responsibility to not take care of. I'm not sure if they can. This is a huge situation, but they will kind of try to temper it. Inflation this nation is experiencing while allowing for the job market to heal. So that's the other component. They're trying to Jay Powell has the unlucky task of trying to both tackle inflation and allow the job market to heal, which is hemorrhaging right now. Inflation, for those who don't know, is basically the rate our currency is falling while the general level of prices for goods and services is rising. So our dollar means less than or is measured less towards the things that we need to buy. Those things are rising in price, while our dollar can't uh, sort of measure up to where it used to be. It's now lower in value. Not any less than what we consider the dollar, but in the global sense of exchange, it's lower than the price of goods globally. We are a globalized market. According to a new household pulse survey by the U.S. Census Bureau, more than 8.7 million Americans weren't working in late December and early January because they had COVID-19 or were taking care of someone who did have it. So we can't ignore that the pandemic is a huge factor. In fact, the pandemic is what spawned all of this. All the current, not so much like the labor supply chain issues that I'll discuss later. But that it did set that off. That's been happening for a while. It's been building, but the pandemic was the right button, the right button that was pushed that kind of like let that explode in a way. So we can't forget about COVID-19. It's a big factor. But while many people would blame our current economic distress on COVID-19 and its variants alone, many others recognize the worker revolution transpiring right now. There's a huge workers' revolution, and it's not being talked about in the media. And I wonder why. There's a select few independent media sources who are actually giving this thing justice. But the labor movement is becoming huge right now. Lots of strikes, lots of lots of deals being made, rising wages, And they're calling this, they've dubbed it the Great Resignation. It's interesting. Very clever name for that. So the Fed is going to start slowly raising interest rates. And interest rates have a direct effect on consumer behavior. When rates go down, borrowing becomes stronger and cheaper, making large purchases on credit more affordable. Home mortgages, auto loans, credit card expenses, those things are all easier to access and have. When rates go up, borrowing is more expensive, which puts a damper on consumption. You're not willing to take out a loan with a lot more interest. It's just not something you want to do. If you're desperate, you'll have to, but that's the kind of market we're traveling into right now. So the Fed is going to start tapering on Treasury and mortgage bonds. On the Treasury and mortgage bonds, it has been buying. So pandemic happens. Oh my God, what are we going to do? If you remember, 2 years ago, the market was in free fall. Jay Powell was in at the time. What does he decide to do? Okay, we're going to start buying these securities to keep the market afloat and balance our spreadsheet. So they buy Treasury bonds and they buy mortgage bonds. Mortgage bond is a bond backed by real estate holdings or real property. And a Treasury bond or a T-bond, I don't know if you listen to NPR's Marketplace, you'll hear Kai Risdall when he does the numbers talk about the yields on the Treasury T-note. The Treasury T-note. He's talking about the yield on the Treasury bonds, which are fixed rate U.S. government debt securities with a maturity date or a date that the percentage of the yield that you bought into that bond has to be repaid to you or to whoever purchased that security, ranging between 10 to 30 years. So that's the maturity rate usually, or the maturity date usually, 10 to 30 years. Treasury bonds or T-bonds are one of 4 types of debt issued by the U.S. Department of Treasury to finance the U.S.'s spending activities. You might be familiar with what this is called. So when the pandemic happened, he started buying. We started buying our own securities, our own Treasury bonds, our own mortgage bonds, and the Treasury bonds. When you buy into them, it's a process called, I'm sure you've heard of it, quantitative easing, and that's what that does. It kind of brings the market to a stability, so that things don't go into free fall. But the Fed could potentially start reducing some of the Treasury and mortgage holdings it currently has. So the bonds, the Treasury and the mortgage bonds that it currently has, it might start releasing those. And like I said before, it's 9 trillion in assets, and this is something he needs to do to alleviate. It's kind of imagine it as like a balloon. So this is a bubble or a balloon. A balloon is a better analogy because bubbles just pop instantly and that's chaos. But a balloon, so imagine a big balloon and Jay Powell is sort of like you kind of letting the air out slowly. That's what he's doing by tapering and releasing the bonds. But that just those light releases of air are you know they send ripples through the market and the economy. So it's not a small thing, but this is what he has to do to regulate the market. So the market hasn't reacted well to this triple threat. The triple threat of raising interest rates, Jay Powell stopping the purchasing of the Treasury and the mortgage bonds, and the potential of releasing those 9 trillion in assets. These 3 things are scaring the market right now. It's a scary time for hedge funds and the big banks. They're kind of losing their shit in a way. But what does that mean for us regular folks? When the market's in free fall, there are these things that I'm sure people have heard of called 401ks. And a lot of that hinges on the major indices like the Dow Jones. The Dow Jones are just the top 3 blue chip stocks. So like McDonald's, like the biggest companies that we see today. Amazon. What else is in there? You know, the names that you assume don't falter, and when those start faltering, those hit our pensions, our savings. You know, because they're tied in with those indices. Um, Also, the interest rate isn't anywhere near to where Jerome Powell is going to stop. Um, so what does that mean? You know, millennials and down, mostly millennials, because we're used to this kind of nonsensory. This means the millennial generation and under will once again feel the sting of an economy where homeownership and building lasting wealth is virtually impossible. Yay! But we're used to that, so I mean, we do what we can. This is why we're so incensed, but they don't understand why. I don't understand why they don't understand why. So my hope is that in the midst of all this, just like last year, the regular retail investor comes out on top within this market. It's been about a year. I'm not sure to the date. It's been about a year. It was sometime this week last year where the market was turned upside down on its head with the meme rush, or what they called the meme rush. And the spirit hasn't ebbed since then. You know, for those who don't know and who weren't paying attention at that time, uh, a lot of retail investors, um, or actually, it started on Reddit for the most part, Wall Street Bets. So there was a guy, I forget his name right now. I can look it up later and probably post him down in the comment, not the comments, but the description. So you guys can know who he was later on. But this guy noticed that there were several several shorts on certain stocks during the pandemic, and there were huge shorts. Like these hedge funds were trying to bulldoze these companies into the ground, and it's a common practice. But this guy, he sort of tipped everyone off on the Reddit threads, and he noticed that if we were to flood these companies with shorts, heavy, crippling shorts on these companies, we could literally squeeze them out of the market. And a squeeze is when someone shorts a stock, um, and then several people start to purchase said stock, and the value of it begins to rise. A short is basically a bet against the stock, so you're hoping it goes down, and you make the difference between where you bought the loaned out stock, and then sell it again at the difference, so that you make the difference in how much it was when you started until how low it went. That's the money you make from your short. And say you shorted, you know, 70,000 shares of the stock, and the value raises well above where you were hoping it would go down to. You then have to pay that back, and you don't have that because you were betting against them. Hopefully you don't. What happened with a lot of these companies is that other entities, outside entities, had to then bail them out because they were squeezed to the point where they couldn't wrap their heads around what was happening. And I suspect a lot of how should I, like, shadow agents have been, like, you know, placing themselves in sort of, because what's been happening now is that what they call meme stocks, some of the meme stocks have like major threads on Reddit, and a lot of people who are like really bullish on those stocks are like in those threads. But I'm sure that these hedge funds have gotten wise to that and have placed people in there so they can see what's going on in the Reddit threads. That's what I would do if I was a hedge fund manager. I mean, it's just an easy play. Insert. It's like market espionage, but not really, because it's social media espionage, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, so it's been about a year since that happened, and I hope that these retail investors come out on top in this market, because that may be the only way to build diverse enough pockets of wealth to contribute to the rapid change happening within the culture and the economy. There's so much change happening. I mean, there's Web3 coming into the fold, there's crypto happening. Um, I think Jay Powell is floating this idea, but he won't make a move on it unless the president and Congress sign off on it, to digitize the dollar. That's crazy. So there's going to be a cryptocurrency for the U.S. dollar. That's going to be like a thing, and it's going to be on the like blockchain. I assume it's going to be blockchain. I'm not sure. I'll probably read up more about that. I'm sure that we'll have an episode with some of the crypto peeps I know. Yeah. So Fed Chair Jay Powell has been saying that the tapering is inevitable. So it's time to buckle up for a fierce ride. And the one nugget or tidbit I'll say for the retail investor out there. So market warriors, retail investors out there, everywhere you may be. There's a lot of things that have been said about this current market and how to gain the advantage here from this position. A lot of people like Jim Cramer and Kai Wisdall, other market heads will say that in this type of economy, look for ticker symbols with solid earnings and real profits. Don't go for speculation. This is speculation. This is not a speculation market. So don't look for the story. The story being something Elon, texts or tweets out, or that's those kinds of things will not fly in this market because Jay Powell is for sure going to tick up interest rates. So you look for solid earnings, companies that actually make things. They have profits. Look at their quarterly earnings. Are they actually advancing? Are they making something of value for consumers? Um, Rising interest rates are death to speculation. And I know um, you look at your market updates every day and you're seeing red, you know, but the thing is, what is doom and gloom to some is an opportunity for many others. What does that red mean ultimately? If you're not buying in a frenzy in irrational, ridiculous ways, stockpile, 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 stockpile. What does that red mean? The red means that it's cheaper. And you're looking for things with solid earnings. So, I mean, it's a little too expensive for my taste, but you see something like Netflix. Everyone's saying, "Oh my God, Netflix is tanking." But I'm sure at that lower price, buying the dip, those dividends at the end of the year will look pretty nice, right? Okay, just something to think about. What do bulls do when they see red? Toro, they charge. Another important thing to stress is that we need to start asking ourselves the question when we're retail investing: what investments can we take a look at to create value for our communities and the organizations we join to make an impact? So you really got to ask yourself the question: if you're just making this money just for you, I mean, that's fine, self empowerment, sovereignty. I'm trying to make a better life for myself. Cool, 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 cool. But maybe it's just the kind of person I am. I don't know. But can you really enjoy that wealth if you see a surplus of suffering around you? It's just a question to ask. I mean, the alternative to that is to do what the 1% does and just tune it out. There's this guy in downtown LA. I forgot. It's this developer. He's building these like overpasses in downtown LA, so that eventually from apartment complex, luxury apartment complex to condo apartment complex, you'll never have to actually touch the streets of downtown LA. You can just travel on these, mid-level, above one-story overpasses, and that's to never have to see the homeless population ever. That's his plan. It's like, no, we'll just build overpasses so we don't have to, smell that, hear that, see that, feel that. Yeah. Do you want to be that person? I mean, so it's important to add value to yourself and gain that wealth for yourself, for your family, for your people, your friends. At the same time, think about your communities because that's where the investment needs to be. This could be the beginning of a new type of market, uh, a new type of market paradigm. A lot of people see the market and just call like evil outright, Um, but there's something new happening. There's especially with uh, the labor movements, the unions that are forming. People are looking for ownership in the companies and to have a say. And you have a say with unions as well as shares of stock. Those are two things that you have to consider because you're trying to you're trying to have a stake in this thing. You're trying to make sure that it's not just the CEOs, CFOs, the, the the corporate boards are taking their slices of pie. You're making sure that people have some too. Um, and there's a new type of market paradigm happening, one working in conjunction with crypto and Web3, which is going to be very interesting to see for the future. Um, so there's a new generation of investor, and it's edging into the market, and we are ready to make moves. So this is Kevin Eze, your host of the Purple Fox podcast, signing out.